An ancient horror has awoken from its slumber and is hungry for blood. Shall we see how many have fallen into shadow? What nightmare have these luckless souls fallen into?
You keep lookout.
Will you find the path to salvation? Or be lost in the darkness forever?
Hey everyone, it's Soul here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am really excited for today's video as this is my first ever video game discussion. Like many other late 90s babies, I grew up watching a lot of YouTubers during my high school years. I ended up watching a lot of the big name gaming channels like PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, and Markiplier, and more. To this day, I often prefer watching others play video games, and I usually only play them and buy the game if I like the story enough to do so. And that is what happened for me with the Dark Picture Anthology series. But despite all of the playthroughs and the general popularity around the supermassive games, I feel there is only one of those 4 games that deserves much more hype and conversation, and that's House of Ashes. In my opinion, that was the best game out of the entire Dark Pictures Anthology Season 1. Before we dive in though, please remember to hit that like button, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and leave a comment down below. Here is your one and only warning that this video contains spoilers. Alright, let's get into it. For those of you that may not know, the Dark Pictures Anthology is a collection of standalone horror games created by Supermassive Games. It is considered by many, although it's not formally, but it is considered by fans as a form of sequel to the successful horror game Until Dawn. The reason for this is that Until Dawn really made popular the concept of the butterfly effects in games. It was not the first game to do so, but it definitely was the most popular at the time. And the Dark Pictures Anthology keeps that butterfly effect going strong in all 4 of their games, hence why many people feel that it is a form of sequel to Until Dawn. In every game of the Dark Pictures Anthology, you are always given 5 characters, and the decisions you make determine who will live and who will die. The first game to be released in the series was Man of Medan in 2019. Supermassive then did an annual release, with Little Hope being released 2020, House of Ashes 2021, and the final game of the Season 1 of Dark Pictures Anthology was just released at the end of last year, called The Devil in Me. Now, I was originally thinking of making a video discussing and comparing all 4 of these games in detail, but I ended up loving the story of House of Ashes so much that I feel it deserves its own video. But to quickly sum up why I feel this game is significantly better than the other 3 is because of the actual enemies. In both Man of Medan and Little Hope, all of the threats ended up being nothing, and to many, myself included, it was just a very predictable twist that we saw coming from the beginning of the game. It's the cliche of it's all in your head and it was all just a dream. As for The Devil in Me, there wasn't really a twist at the end. It was the one psycho chasing after them the entire time, which we knew from the beginning. House of Ashes, on the other hand, had real monsters and a real mystery surrounding them that we got to learn more of as we went on. At first, you're probably wondering maybe they aren't real. Then it's, well, are they vampires? What's the rules with that? Stabs in the chest and can't touch the sun. And then it turns out that they are just innocent aliens that are slaves to a parasite. The levels and mystery to the enemy is what really sets the story apart from the others. Now, House of Ashes is, as I've already said, a great game, but just for fun, I'll fill you guys in on how my playthrough went. I accidentally got Nick and Rachel killed at the end of the game. She got shot from having the parasite in her, and he kinda got his neck snapped. Since I had told Clarice the truth about her being sick, she didn't swing over to Rachel on the rope, and she disappeared into the cave, only for her to come back at the end and attack Eric and Salim before she got kicked into oblivion. And also, because I had picked to have air support in the very beginning of the game, Salim ended up coming back to base with Eric and Jason, which I felt kind of bad about since all he wanted to do was to go home and see his son. Sorry, Salim, that was totally on me. Now, let's discuss all of the great things that were in this story and this game. The first thing that was just a smart writing choice is the setting. There seems to be a growing over these last couple of years of stories that occur in, around, and during the Iraq wars and just the early 2000s in general. I find the setting of this story to be a perfect fit for the eventual character developments to occur. Of course, the ruins also make so much sense as there are a multitude of historic discoveries that are being made to this day in Iraq and the surrounding countries. So I was on board with this game right from the start. The next thing that I think was great was the love triangle situation that is occurring between Nick, Rachel, and Eric. I think that having the players mess around in these people's intimate lives, it was kind of fun to see. You get to pick when the truth will finally come out about Rachel's affair, and you get to decide if you want to try and fix the marriage or not. I did end up playing to try and mend Rachel and Eric's marriage, and I really like the history behind their love story. In the beginning, you get the feeling maybe they're just apart because of their rankings and positions and the war, but you quickly see and feel that there's more tension than just that. There's one or two times that Rachel kind of mumbles about how it's her fault. Obviously, it depends on what phrases you pick over time and what traits she ends up having, but you get the sense that something big had happened in the past, and then if you get the cutscene of their past, it all just makes sense. Rachel was driving when they got into a car accident that causes Eric to need a prosthetic leg. It was a sad story to hear, and yet I love this background of these characters. Of course, they needed space. Rachel was just guilt-ridden, and Eric just wasn't handling it well and threw himself into his work. The timing of this big reveal was also done perfectly. It's also just a fun bonus that it's in Little Hope, which was the previous game. But still, the writers went out of their way creating this backstory for these characters, and it really paid off. The backstory in these characters is one of the strongest points in this game, not only for the love triangle plot, but also for the individual characterization of Nick and Jason, who have their own backstory of the checkpoint. The mystery of the checkpoint and Nick's guilt runs all the way until the final stage of the game, in which Jason reveals to Salim that he commanded Nick to shoot a girl who ended up being innocent. The sad and traumatic events added a complexity to the characters, and the writers then took it a step further by having Jason have this even larger backstory to his own character. It adds a twist, and it completely turns his character around. Jason is not this hardcore American racist soldier that's there to honor the dead that died in 9/11. He was high when the towers fell, and he joined the army just to have a purpose in life. The brutal truth of his character was a sad and shocking twist, and while he was probably the worst guy in the beginning of the game, he was definitely the most loyal at the end of it all. Jason is by far the most memorable character out of the entire Dark Pictures Anthology series. Going off of that, the friendship with Salim and Jason was a really nice addition to the game. Not only does it help drive Jason's character development, but it also helps send home the overarching message that this story is showcasing of friendship, and that not all enemies are your true enemies. It was also just really cool to play characters that were on two different sides. I know the actual war and the battle in the beginning doesn't last long, but having the beginning where we see both sides of the armies before fighting, it was really effective, and it was definitely a unique experience to play as. Now, the enemies themselves, these alien creatures, not only do they look and sound awesome, but the realization at the end that they aren't like that by nature, and they're instead being controlled by a parasite, that was a really nice addition. First off, the misdirect of them being vampires worked great with the parasite spreading through a bite. It's also just gross, but like in a really good way gross. To see the parasite moving in Rachel's neck, it's definitely more a grotesque side of horror that is added in at a perfect time. The alien arc that we get to explore at the end was really cool, and I loved the idea of the aliens being able to communicate through music. You know, that's before they got the parasites. You can tell that there was some thought put into how their society worked and what was going on based on all the clues that you can find in this section. There's more than one alien needed to fly the Ark. They were probably on the Ark to escape the parasites that presumably infected them on their home planet. It's just a whole minefield of creativity that's there to explore with these creatures. I guess this leads me into the things I didn't 100% love. There are a few things that I wish just had more time spent on them, and when I saw these, I found myself wanting the story to have been expanded to the size of a full game like Until Dawn or The Quarry. The aliens are one of those things. I personally wanted more of that lore and history of the alien life forms. The ending of the game was just such a cool section, and I guess I just didn't want to move through it so quickly. I wanted there to be more things to do with the aliens, especially the musical aspect of the aliens' language. I thought that was a genius idea, but it wasn't really fully expanded upon as it could have been. The only other things that I feel needed work was things more to do on the technical and a little bit of the picky side of things. While the characters and the character arcs and their backgrounds was really well done, I do think that some of the dialogue is just a little juvenile. Like, it's not stellar dialogue all the way through, but that's just something really nitpicky. And the last issue that I had, and I don't know if it's only me, but I kind of had issues with loading in the textures. They oftentimes didn't load in fast enough. So it would be like a cutscene and the shirts and clothes weren't textured, so they'd be kind of blurry for a split second, and then it would just snap back to like being normal textured. Again, I don't know if it's just me. I was playing on my old PS4, so that, so maybe that lagged some of the graphics a little, and there was also some choppy moves, either from, again, the lag of the graphics, or maybe it's just the animation isn't as smooth as some other games. I'm not a tech person, so I can't say the cause. It's just something that I would have wanted fixed, as it did start to get a little annoying as I was playing. At the end of the day, though, House of Ashes was an amazing game, and I don't know if it's because it was the third release coming after the disappointment of the fans from the first two games being like a all-in-your-head type ending. I don't know what, but it just wasn't talked about nearly as much as the other three games. And I feel that's a huge shame because it was actually phenomenal. The plot, the character arcs, the setting, and the pacing, it was all executed perfectly, and that's why House of Ashes is my favorite game out of the Dark Pictures Anthology Season 1. If you guys liked my discussion, please hit that like button down below and leave your thoughts in the comments section. If you want me to discuss one of the other 3 games in the Dark Pictures Anthologies, please let me know down below. While you're down there, make sure to click that subscribe button to see more videos from me. And if you want, turn on notifications to be notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you future souls next time. Bye, guys.